Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As promised, today I'm going to be talking about loneliness, um, how I cope with loneliness, my thoughts on what it means to be lonely, um, and just kind of ways to ease that pain, that people refer to as loneliness. So I guess I'll start with, my experiences with loneliness. I grew up a fairly lonely child. Um, my mother didn't really let me have friends. Um, she was very selective about what friends she let me keep, and I was really limited to just one friend at a time, more or less. Um, and I remember feeling very, very lonely as a kid. I played a lot of video games to cope with my loneliness. And when things in my family started spiraling out of control, um, I coped with being lonely by playing World of Warcraft, which very quickly snowballed out of control into just full-blown addiction. I was playing World of Warcraft for like 14 hours a day, every waking hour of the day. And it got so bad that I remember the day I stepped outside into the sun for the first time and just being completely blown out by the sun. Like I could barely see, I couldn't stand, walking was hard. Um, and yeah, I was lonely when I was in high school. I was very depressed for most of high school. And I remember uh, feeling like the cure to my loneliness was that good relationship. Just if I could have that good relationship, um, you know, everything would be fixed, and I would be better. And I thought this through most of high school, and I had a string of very lonely relationships in high school. Girls I would date, and when they either would start spending a lot of time with me, I would find a reason to break up with them, or, as is the case with the person who would later become my ex, I would just dedicate myself to people who, you know, weren't really interested in dating me or kind of led me along. Um, and I was a lonely college student. When I was in college, I had a handful of best friends, but I had trouble relating to people. I felt very out of place a lot of the time. I was also coping with, the very beginnings of my mental illness and coming to terms with, what that meant, and learning to live with some of the intense things I was experiencing at the time. Um, and I was lonely in my first relationship. I felt very alone. I thought that the only thing that would really fix the loneliness would be spending more time with the person I was dating. But I found that the more time I spent with them, the worse I felt. It was like very paradoxical. The more I spent with them, the more dire I felt, the more drained, the more in pain. And that relationship ended on a very, very bitter note. She said that I wasn't attractive enough. Or not that I wasn't attractive. I mean, more or less, that's what she said. But she said that she was no longer attracted to me, and then she broke up with me. So it was like I was lonely for a very long time. Um, and then at the end of my extreme loneliness, I lost, what was like my one really what I believed to be good relationship, and I was kind of left alone. Um, and it was in the midst of this like true deep loneliness that I started to become aware of the ritual of feeling lonely. And what I mean by that is uh, loneliness is not uh, something you experience when people aren't around, because you can feel lonely in a crowded room. You know, you can feel lonely when you're with someone you're dating. Um, Loneliness is a way that you inhabit your body. It is a way of living your life where you are never fully in tune with what it is you feel. And I believe that very strongly. Um, I think to be lonely in its purest form is to be cut off from yourself. I think that is true loneliness. Because if you're in tune with your emotions, you know how you feel, um, you are never truly lonely. You can be in pain, you can be sad, um, you can be angry, but you'll never truly be alone. Um, so a little bit more on what I believe loneliness to be. When I was at my loneliest, towards the end of my breakup, um, I was very depressed. I was very heavy. I was the heaviest I've ever been. I think I was close to 170. Um, and I wasn't really getting much sunlight. I wasn't exercising. Wasn't sleeping very well. Um, I was kind of a ghost in a shell. You know, I wasn't very connected to myself. Um, and I experienced a level of loneliness that I haven't really experienced since. Um, and the process of fixing that lonely feeling has largely been opening up to myself. And what I mean by that is um, coming to terms with my internal states. You know, I spend a lot of time listening to, you know, just music and self-soothing. Um, and I spent a good year just kind of crying to sad music, you know, listening to sad bands, um, kind of going through the motions of the grieving process. And I still feel, you know, waves of sadness, but I think I'm able to watch them as they pass over me, um, as opposed to getting ridden by the wave of sadness that I used to get ridden by. And even being sad, it doesn't feel so terrible. Because I think when you're sad, you don't really feel lonely, you know, when you're truly sad. And you allow yourself to feel that sadness. Um, so what are some things that you can do to feel less alone? Um, the big things that I would recommend are make daily rituals where you get to inhabit your body in a positive way. And what do I mean by that? I mean, like, if you like a sport or something, go outside, play that sport. Um, if you don't do sports, go for a long walk. Um, and if you don't like going for long walks, um, maybe do some yoga in your apartment. Um, I think loneliness literally is a state of the body. You know, you are not fully experiencing uh, being in your body. Um, and in terms of my own personal growth. Yoga has been a big thing for me recently. I did Tai Chi for a year and a half, and Tai Chi was kind of my gateway into how um, body movements plus breathing can take you away from loneliness. You know, even if you're alone. Um, and the one thing I would really encourage you to do um, is uh, try to spend meaningful time alone and with people. And what I mean by that is, when you are alone, be present with yourself. You know, don't shy away from your emotions. Allow yourself to feel them fully. You know, this is different from ruminating, because ruminating is like you're going around in a circle. You know, I ruminate sometimes about things and my ex, and feeling is different than ruminating. When you feel, you allow yourself to be present with your inner world. Um, so come up with a way to be present. And for me, the way I'm present with my emotions is really with music. I put on some sad music and I just soak it in. You know, good bands for this if you're a sad person, which I'm sure you already know. You don't need this advice, but you know, if anyone's watching this who needs bands to be sad to, just throwing them off the top of my head: Empire, Empire, I Was the Lonely Estate, Fourth Wanderers, Phoebe Bridgers, Bon Iver, um, what else? Death Cab for Cutie, all fantastic bands to cry to. I mean, if you've never done it before, I highly recommend it. It can be a life-changing experience, and I think if you make a daily ritual out of it, you know, especially if you can combine, um, you know, listening to music with physical activity, even if it's just a walk, that can be so therapeutic. Um, because I think the thing you miss out on a lot of the time is how loneliness coincides with being stationary and stuck in one place. Um, you know, it's important to remember that you are a mind and a body. You know, there is a physical um, component to you, and that what your body is doing is how you feel. You know, if you are stuck in an emotion, moving will help you get past that emotion. And I think that's where the expression like "stuck in my feels" comes from. You know, it's like if you stay in one place, it can be easy to just get stuck. So I like to combine long walks with very contemplative, somber music, um, and that just it does it for me. You know, I love it. It's one of the great joys of my life is getting to go on these nice long walks and listen to my sad music. And if sad music doesn't do it for you, listen to angry music. You know, go out there and listen to Lamb of God and Slipknot and go for a long walk. You know, and if that doesn't do it for you, listen to something else. Whatever it is that gives you that sense of release, you know, explore it. It's just for me, the sad music is always what's really gripped me. And I think beneath all of my layers is really just someone who needs to process their grief. Um, and yeah, and I think the last thing you can do is this isn't the case for everyone. Um, but I think for a lot of people who consider themselves loners or who deal with feelings of loneliness, um, there may be some relationships in your life where uh, you don't get to be your authentic self. And what I mean by that is, um, maybe you have to edit yourself a little bit, or maybe the other person you're a friend with, or maybe even in a relationship with, isn't fully attuned to your emotions, and you don't get to experience the full depth of yourself in that friendship. And if you're a sensitive person, which I think a lot of loners are, um, because contrary to popular belief, I think loners and people who experience loneliness are highly sensitive. Um, so if you are a sensitive person, you're hyper aware of when part of you is unacceptable in a relationship, and sometimes it's never stated verbally. Sometimes it can be just as little as um, you're talking about how you felt sad and someone looks away, disapprovingly, and to someone who wasn't very sensitive, they would just ignore it and keep talking. But if you're a very sensitive person, you'll take that moment, as I have in the past with my ex, and you'll say, okay, I guess I can never talk about being sad again. And these types of relationships um, are at the heart of loneliness. It's these relationships are really the poison of the soul. They're the relationships where, um, 7 or 8 years down the line, you just feel like a shell of a human being. And if you can, at any cost, um, find a way to minimize these relationships in your life. You don't have to necessarily kick every person you can't be 100% authentic with out of your life. You just have to minimize them to the point where um, the friendships you're really valuing and spending time on and investing in are the ones where you can be your full authentic self and feel accepted. And it doesn't have to be a ton of people. It can be just one person. It can be two people. um but however many people it is, find someone who you feel you can be your full authentic self with, and invest in that relationship. Ask them if they're free on Friday. Ask them if they have time to just sit there and do nothing. Because for someone who's been rejected, for someone who spends a lot of their life um, kind of experiencing that rejection of attunement from the people around you, having even one friendship where you feel that deep level of safety, expressing how you feel, it's worth its weight in gold. It's so valuable. I can't even overstate it. If you have one strong relationship in your life, you have to treasure it like it was made out of gold. Um, so yeah, um, I think that's a lot of what I have to say about loneliness. Um, just off the top of my head, I think loneliness and trauma often go hand in hand, because traumatic experience is something that it kind of separates you from the natural flow of life, and people who have been traumatized often feel like they're not part of life anymore. And I think uh, part of the reintegration process is uh, coming to find the parts of yourself that you've rejected as, beautiful, important parts of you. If you don't like your nose, or you don't like your arms or your hands, learning to think nicely about your physical body, and even though it might sound cheesy, like positive affirmation does a lot. Look in the mirror and say something nice to yourself every day, and you'll be surprised. One day you'll wake up and you'll look at yourself and you'll be like, look at that handsome dude. If you suffer from a lot of negative thoughts about yourself, as I do, and I imagine a lot of people do, say nice things to yourself. You know, look in the mirror and notice something that you like about yourself, and do it every day. You know, make a habit out of it. Do it twice a day, and before you know it, your internal monologue of like, oh, you're a loser, you're not good looking, it starts to turn a little bit. You know, you start to notice nice things about yourself. Um, and those are my thoughts about loneliness. I think, in all honesty, there's a lot you can say about loneliness, but loneliness is not being alone. Loneliness is a feeling. You know, it's a feeling that you experience uh, that inhabits your body in a way where you are rejecting the self. When you find a way to be present with yourself, to be with yourself, you will no longer be lonely. And it won't matter who's around you. It won't matter how many friends you have, even though a couple good friendships can help you with feeling lonely. Um, but dealing with loneliness begins and ends with the self. And I think reintegrating your emotions, your feelings, your sensations uh, back into your body, and coming to appreciate yourself. Um, it's all part of the journey of not feeling lonely. Um, so I hope you enjoyed this talk. I don't quite know what I'm going to talk about next time, but there will be a next time. And for the 2 or 3 people watching my videos, I appreciate you. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.